Hi, my name is Marian Vasquez. I'm from Tech Milenio Toluca and this is my introduction to the exercise 10. Today's topic is Cold War, a long-term phase between Russia and Soviet Union relationship that involved verbal, social, political threats, manipulation, all because of being opposite economic and social systems basically allow war for seeing who's best. The important dates were 1947 Cold War containment and the Red Scare, where policies imposed into Americans that shaped their way of thinking by foreign countries, mainly Russians. Meanwhile, HUAC commit that devoted its life to show communism's subversion was alive. Then, 1950, Cold War, atomic stage. There was an echo of Truman recommending to use atomic force to contain communism expressionism anywhere that seemed it would be occurring. Before this day, there were tests of atomic bombs in both Russia and Russian territories also. First military action of the Cold War began when the Soviet backed North America. People's Army invaded its pro-Western neighbor to the south. Truman sent the American military into Korea, but the Korean War dragged to a stalemate and ended in 1953. This as part of Cold War abroad. 1955, USA incorporated to NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, West Germany permitting it to remilitarize responding Soviets with a Warsaw Pact. 1957, Cold War extends to space. Space exploration became a dramatic era for Cold War. Soviets shot a ballistic missile, first artificial satellite, event that disappointed Americans, but 1 year later, USA launched Explorer 1. 1960, the Bay of Pigs invasion. In 1961, the Cuban Missile Crisis. 1972, Richard Nixon said, "Don't use diplomacy instead of military action to create more poles, establish international relationships, and prohibited nuclear manufacture." 1989, Berlin Wall fall was a changing point. The most visible communism symbol was destroyed. 1991, Soviet Union had fallen apart. Cold War had ended. Now, what does the term Cold War refers to? According to Cambridge Dictionary, this term refers itself not as a direct finding. It was most of a political pressure situation and threats. It is a term that refers to the relationship between US and the Soviet Union after Second World War. How each economic system, capitalism and socialism, works. Be sure to include the names of people who began and proposed each one. Both socialism and capitalism are essentially economic philosophies advocating public rather than private ownership, especially of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of goods. Making money, basically, in a society. Both aim to fix the problems they see as created by a free market capitalist system, including the exploitation of workers and a widening gulf between rich and poor. The difference comes when socialism controls means through free market and capitalism controls them through the state and class difference. The first thinkers and with their manifestos, first proposers of these movements were Robert Owen and Charles Fourier for socialism, and Karl Marx with Friedrich Engels for capitalism. Now, the interview which I did to my dad, Andres Vasquez Vigil, he couldn't answer the questions by voice because he doesn't know English, but I'm going to read the question and then his answer traduced. What countries were the world leaders during this period? Russia and URSS. URSS. Why did countries who were allies during the war become enemies afterwards? He didn't know, but searching he said, even though there is a peace among them, there is always the rush to overlap and win, so even though peace agreements were signed, it will still be left that issue, more as a consequence of economic stress and competition. Where did the Cold War took place? In Cuba, the climax, highest point of the war, a cause of some missiles. What opinion did the general public have of the Cold War? In general, nowadays, there will always be different potency countries, but there isn't a fear of them now that they have signed the peace agreements. Back in the time, fear was a daily life thing, more due to a World War III fear. What type of weapons did the two world powers have at their disposal? Nuclear bombs that are 200 times more potent than the ones at Hiroshima. Now, my opinion about the topic and the two economic systems. I think the Cold War was product of egocentric people wanting to take power and human impulses of being the best at everything. I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but in general, I think both economic systems are okay, except for the application of them. That was bad. This as a consequence of once again bad people that only sees for themselves. Excluding that information, I think socialism is the best for common people, while capitalism is better for higher classes. Thank you for listening, and that was all for today. Goodbye, teacher.